Hey, friends, Keith Ellison here, Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, and welcome to Affording Your Life. This week happens to be Labor Day week, and I want to focus our attention today on a woman named Frances Perkins. Today, at a time when Americans are facing an affordability crisis, when childcare is high, when wages are stagnant, when prices are high, but mergers and acquisitions by giant companies are at an all-time fever pitch. When we've seen 40, 50 years of lax antitrust enforcement and years of deregulation and concentration of power, attendant with the takeover of a democracy and the 40 years of union busting, I think it is important to just take a minute to talk about a hero who I fear might fade from history unless we lift her name up. And her name is Frances Perkins, a person who literally transformed the American workplace through her persistence, a woman who truly knew the meaning of affording your life, Secretary of Labor, Frances Perkins. Now, when President Roosevelt appointed her in 1933, Perkins became the first woman in U.S. history to become a cabinet member and become the Secretary of Labor. But she was more than a first, more than a person who broke that glass ceiling. She was actually a highly substantive fighter for reform, and she was the architect of many of the protections that today we just hold for granted. She came into office at the height of the Great Depression, when millions of Americans were out of work, when wages were low, when hours were long, and when protections were almost non-existent. Frances Perkins had already seen the consequences of unsafe working conditions firsthand. As a young woman, she watched the flames of the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in 1911, when 146 garment workers, mostly immigrant women, died because they were locked inside of a burning building. That tragedy seared into her the determination to make workers' lives safer, fairer, and more dignified. As Secretary of Labor, Perkins set out an ambitious agenda, and she did it. She achieved it. She helped design and implement the Social Security Act of 1935, which became the first time Americans had a system of old age pension, unemployment insurance, and aid to families in need. Let's take that again. As Secretary of Labor, Perkins set out on an ambitious agenda, and she achieved it. Social Security Act of 1935, which for the first time gave Americans a system of old age pensions, unemployment insurance, and aid to families in need. She championed the Fair Labor Standards Act, which established the minimum wage, the 40-hour work week, and restrictions on child labor. She was instrumental in the Civilian Conservation Corps and Public Works Administration, which gave jobs to millions. And in fact, if you find yourself walking around a park in any Minneapolis or St. Paul neighborhood, you might walk across a bench or a bridge or a retaining wall, and you might see something stamped on it like WPA 1935. Well, you should thank Frances Perkins because she helped design that program that put millions of workers who are out of work back to work. She also, through the WPA, helped establish a system for writers who went out and talked to people who had walked through various aspects of American life, including slavery, and captured those stories for posterity, which is why we have them today and can study the past and learn from it. Frances Perkins. Her guiding principle was simple but powerful, that the government has a responsibility to protect workers from exploitation and to ensure that prosperity is shared and not hoarded. She turned ideas that seemed radical into law and things that today we take for granted, but are under attack from the Trump administration. Her legacy lives with us every day. When you receive a paycheck that honors overtime pay, when you see a child in school instead of a factory, when you know that your retirement is backed by Social Security, those are the reforms of Frances Perkins. She once said that the people are what matter to the government, and a government should aim to give all the people under its jurisdiction the best possible life. Boy, do I ever agree with that. So this Labor Day, remember Secretary of Labor Frances Perkins, a true champion and a true visionary of affording your life, even before it was cool. Thank you.